So I get asked this question all the time from people that are thinking about starting their personal brands, or they're started but they don't know how much they actually want to share. So how much is too much when it comes to your personal brand? So how vulnerable should you be when you are sharing content online?
So I think it's easy to want to share a lot online. But what I've learned quite recently as we've been building is the importance of strategy. So whatever you do, there needs to be a strategy behind it. So why are you sharing what you're sharing? What's the purpose of it? Because a lot of people get caught in the cathartic nature of sharing. They feel that it's a release and they feel good as a result of that. But on the flip side, it can actually be damaging because it could be a week later you actually regret saying what you said, especially in the absence of a strategy, because then you realise, well, I didn't have a purpose aligned with the business, so it didn't really do anything other than make me feel better. But it can make other people relate as well. So there's a balance, because by sharing, and again, it depends what your goals are, what the focus is, and a lot of businesses don't have a level of focus that is aligned with the business. Are you doing it to make other people feel better generally? Make yourself feel better, make other people feel better. That's great. That's a really brave thing to do, and it can be very impactful. But how does that align with the business? And it can be confusing from a personal branding perspective, because now you're potentially faced with a personal brand that is very personal, not necessarily aligned with the business, but doing good things, and then the business proper. So how can you merge the two? Do the two merge? So it can get complicated really quickly.
It's a difficult one because there's quite a lot of trends out there around founders crying on camera to get people to stop scrolling to see the content. So I think sharing the vulnerable moments can be used in a way to get more engagement as well, which is interesting. But I suppose, is it coming from a place of it strategically you're using that and you're trying to be relatable and showing the downsides of building a business? Because I think for a long time, social media was a highlight reel. And I think people even say that now, that it's still a highlight reel. But I think more people are sharing how vulnerable they are and difficult things that they're experiencing in business as well. But they go all the way to the other end of the spectrum where they share it when they're in the middle of a crisis or in the middle of a challenge. And I don't know. I mean, everybody sits in a different place on that spectrum of how much you're willing to share and how much you're not willing to share. I would always say, like, don't share things as they're happening, because, like you said, you don't want to regret it later. You don't want to think a week later, oh, I shouldn't have shared that, or it's too personal. But then there's some people utilising that to get more engagement as well. So it's part of their strategy. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
It's delicate and it is very personal. And if you are going to share, it has to come from the right place. And I don't think doing it to get attention exclusively is the right thing to do, because I don't think that's truly authentic. I think it's manipulative to a point, but again, it's quite delicate, because you can be authentic with an awareness that you're doing it to get attention, and at the same time it's serving the purpose to help the audience. But fundamentally, it has to come from the right place. And I think if it's performative, which I guess is what
Yeah.
we're saying, if you're doing it for attention, it becomes performance.
Like, is it forced? Like, there's been definitely people that have got personal brands, like Grace Beverley shared that she had a miscarriage and she was open and honest about that. And she got upset on camera, which she's raising awareness of a genuinely awful thing that's happened to her, and she wants to raise awareness for it and open up the conversation. So that's where I feel like it isn't performative. It is just involving her audience in her journey that she's going on. And there's been other founders as well that have faced a really difficult time in the media, and they've shared that openly. So I don't think it's from a perspective of being performative, but there are some people that definitely utilize it in that way. And that's where it crosses a line. And I can see where people that are getting into the personal branding space, or they're thinking about building their personal brands, and they think, do I have to go all the way to that end of that spectrum to get noticed, to get seen? But they don't feel comfortable with that. Or maybe that's actually really unhealthy for them because they're currently struggling and they don't want to put that out there online. But if you're building your personal brand to get clients, then your clients don't want to see not even just like you being really vulnerable. It might be sharing your family on social media, or like sharing too much of your personal life that doesn't actually relate to the business. And it seems irrelevant because, yes, there's a point of being relatable. So sharing that side of you is important. But do you need to share everything in order to be relatable to a potential client? Is that actually helping you? Like, is that a strategy, or is it just using social media as a way to like keep a diary or a journal rather than actually using it to help you build a personal brand that's going to help you build a community, build the people that you want in your network? So yeah,
It has to be the former. It has to be a strategy. Otherwise, it's a risk.
Yeah.
Because in the absence of the strategy, you don't necessarily understand your audience and how what you're putting out there aligns and where it's going to land and the impact it's going to make. And again, it might well just come back to you thinking it's going to be a good idea as opposed to knowing it's a good idea because it's part of the strategy. And I think the point you make about Grace Beverley, she's very much a public figure, and that's a hugely personal, emotional topic that I would say is very much integral to her position as a public figure, because that is something very significant and so impactful on her life that almost to not talk about it wouldn't necessarily fit in with the strategy. So I can see how that is very much aligned and how impactful that can be on her audience to raise awareness and the wider audience as well. I think it is just very easy to share just because of the way you feel, as opposed to sitting back and thinking, right, okay, what's the implications of doing this? And not to, I guess with a personal brand, and now we're very much deep in the age of authenticity, there is a case for as it happens.
Yeah.
But you've got to be careful. It's being mindful, being aware of that, and it's focusing on the intent that you have for the impact you want to make.
Yeah, and I think when we say strategy, like, we know that she's not sat there going, okay, my content pillars are this, and I'm sitting down today and I'm going to really share this personal post, because that's obviously not what she did. Like, she didn't do that. But within her whole career, she's been a big advocate for women's issues, like women getting funding in business, like being treated fairly in business. And I think that fits into that narrative that she was talking about, how she carried on during when she was going through the miscarriage into opening her new Tala store in London, and all of the different things and implications that have come with that. It wasn't just randomly added in, and it definitely wasn't added in to benefit her in any way. Like, she's not positioning herself for like well-being talks around miscarriages and things like that. But I think it's interesting, and it's a part of that bigger picture. So I don't think when you're thinking about being personal, like, we both talk about anxiety because we both experience that within our personal brands. It's not strategically done to be like, oh, we want to be really relatable, or we want to kind of get speaking opportunities around that, or whatever it is. It's part of our journey. So it naturally forms a part of the personal brand. So we've used the tool, the Ikigai tool, which is the Japanese framework, which we use around to find your why. And that is where you can kind of understand a little bit more around like what fits into your personal brand and fits into that bigger picture and what's important to you as well. So like advocating for mental health is something that's important to both of us. So we'll mention that as part of our personal brand. But it's, when we say strategy, it's not always with the aim of getting something at the end of it. It's just part of that holistic view of how we look at a personal brand. Would you agree?
If it fits in, that's a really good point. So strategy can, in this context, sound manipulative because, we're going to create performative content focused around certain pain points that we experience that are going to increase likes. And if that's our intent, then that can become, I would suggest, creating content for the wrong reasons. But when it's integral to you as a founder, an owner, a creator, it can align really well. And also the audience, they're not stupid, right? So they can see through it. So I think if it is disingenuous and you're doing it to get likes, people are going to see it. Either, if not straight away, eventually they're going to cotton onto it and you're just going to get switched off. So it has to come from the right place.
Yeah, and I think when we've spoken about it before, when we were working on your personal brand, when we were speaking about anxiety and mental health advocacy, you were like, I could come up with like 100 pieces of content around that. And I think that's a really good sign if you're like, oh, should I include this in my personal brand? Should I not? It's like, do you feel like there's an abundance of ideas that you've got naturally to talk about that topic? And if there is, then is there value for the audience as well? So I would say like maybe sharing pictures of your family online isn't giving value for your audience, whereas talking about your mental health, that could give value to your audience or get seen by somebody that relates to you. So it's thinking about how you're positioning yourself and does that content give value to people in the end as well? So I'd say like think about, can you write loads about that topic? Does it feel like it's really authentic to you? And is it giving value to your audience? Because if it's not, it is just a diary and you are just journaling your life, which is fine if that's what you want to use social media for, but it's not a personal brand. It's not a strategic personal brand. It's just you putting out photos and pictures about your life and stories. It's not actually thinking about the kind of the things that you want to create, the opportunities you want to create off the back of your personal brand as well.
It's the value, 100%. It has to be deep value for the audience. And when we spoke about anxiety in the context of my personal brand, yeah, you're right. I could talk about that all day, every day, because of the impact it's had on me and how I've moved forward in my career over the years. And I've got a lot of experience in that. And because anxiety impacts so many people, we feel it's relevant to our audience, to founders. In the context of me talking about anxiety from a business perspective, that makes sense. If I talk about anxiety and my experiences but don't contextualize it in a business context, i.e. I'm talking to founders, and how my experiences and thoughts, stories, ideas, perspectives can help them move the needle, then it's not as impactful and the value is diluted, because then it's just me talking without a real focus on how it can impact them. So yeah, I think having something you can talk about endlessly is amazing, and everybody has got something, but it has to align with the audience. Otherwise the message gets lost, it becomes irrelevant.
And often that personal story is what makes things more authentic as well, and have more of an impact. Like, it's why I started the Calming Club like almost 7 years ago, because of my own journey with anxiety. 7 years now, I know, it's crazy. That's why I started that, and I used my personal story to build that business, which is what got me into personal branding. So because I knew the value of sharing my story was a lot more impactful than building the Calming Club brand. And it's evolved with me as I've gone on in my business journey as well. So I think it's understanding, what is your business? How do these personal things link into your business? And then how can you bring that together to form your personal brand? You want to find the common theme amongst all the different topics you're interested in. And we'll talk about that in a future episode as well. But how you can find that link between them so that it doesn't feel like you're being vulnerable for the sake of it. It feels like it's all linked and part of that story.
And if it links, you are streamlining your focus, your energy, your attention. So you're going to get results faster. You're not diluting anything. And I've experienced that in the past where I want to do this and this and this and this and this, and how does it connect? And it's got to align.
So if you could give one tip for somebody getting started with maybe sharing a little bit more of themselves, say they're getting into personal branding and they don't know how much to share, like when you were getting started, like where would you say start with that?
So something you said to me a while ago was, think about somebody that you've worked with who you can visualize when you're creating content. So there's somebody in my mind who I often think about when I'm creating content, because I know that they will really value the content and they align with my wider audience. So they're representative of the other people, the other personas I'm trying to reach out to. So it's really good because I know this person quite well. I've worked with them over a number of years, and I know the impact that I've made on their business. So that's given me confidence to really understand them and my relationship to them from a business perspective. So I would say just try and find somebody who you can visualize when you're creating content for, and really consider as objectively as you can whether or not what you're saying will land with them. Now, we do this all the time, don't we? Go and profile your target customer, and make sure everything you do speaks to them, but that can be really difficult. So yeah, I would suggest just go out and try and find somebody, try and get to know them, because we're talking about relatability here. Fundamentally, it's about relatability. If somebody can deeply relate to you, or the deeper they can relate to you, the closer the connection. And the closer the connection, the deeper the connection, and it's just easier. So yeah.
That's a good tip. I like that one. Yeah, I think I would say write out your origin story is a good place to start. So if you're thinking about how much is too vulnerable, what should I share? Write down how you've got to where you are today and look for the common themes that show up. Like, what's been a pivotal point in your journey that's made you do what you do now? And you might have gone through a challenge or a life experience that's pushed you to do what you do now. And that is something that could link into you. If you want to open up a little bit more in your content, that could be part of that narrative. So like I said before, mine is starting a business because I had anxiety. That is a common theme that runs through everything that I do. And that makes sense because it's part of my origin story, and it's a way I link in all of the different things that I've done in my career so far. So I think it's have a look back at, think about what have you been through? What have you done to get to where you are now? And that will give you a bit of a hint around where do I want to share a bit more about myself? What links into the bigger picture of the business as well? So I think that's where I would start with that.